Well, it's one of those rare days when several ideas came to mind this morning and throughout the morning about what to talk about or what to share. I'm going to riff a little bit on old age. Now, most of the people I talk to about old age kind of look at me and chuckle because they think, you're not old. Because all of them, of course, are over 65, 70, 75, 80, 85 even, all the way up to 94, I know somebody. And I just turned 56, which isn't that old unless you're less than 56. If you're in your 20s, you think 30 is old. And that's the relative thing about this world. But experiencing age, I remember when I turned 45, there was a big aha moment where I thought, oh my gosh, probably more of my life is behind me than in front of me. Now, that doesn't seem like a big deal, but when you really start to contemplate it, when it really hits you as a reality, as something that you're facing, it changes a lot of things. Life doesn't become about the future so much anymore. It becomes very analytical, actually, about where you are and what you've accomplished and where your dreams went, what happened and what didn't happen. And as you go on from there, the past keeps getting bigger and bigger, and your life becomes more and more about the past. For a while. But I want to talk about really the advantage of old age. And I know, of course, everybody's like, what advantage is that? But when I joined the monastery, just about a month before that, when I was in the Himalayas in India, and I was walking with my old friend. And one of the reasons that I ended up joining the monastery was because I had met like 5 stellar monks in a row. And what I told my friend Philip was that for the first time in my life, I was inspired to be old. That up until that point in my life, I had never met anyone that inspired me to old age. It was always something I was kind of either didn't think about at all, or sort of dreaded, or really didn't know what to do with, or just thought it was so far away I never worried about it. Well, here I am on the doorstep of old age, and it has turned out to be one of the biggest blessings that I've seen so far. I really honestly see aging and growing old as one of the purest signs of grace for a couple of reasons. One is that it really brings to light the truth that the sages have been saying for so long, the temporary nature of this world, the fact that all of this changes and none of it can be relied on, that there's no there in the sense world, and that there's nothing to be fulfilling out there as such. And old age really begins to manifest that. One, because you begin to understand that this body is growing old, and it feels more and more separate from the self inside. There's a self inside that's unchanging, that's Satchit Ananda. It's not growing old. It was never young. It was never born. It has always been. And I find that as I'm visibly aging, identifying that self has become more and more tangible, more and more easy, I guess, in a way. What I'm talking about is that I can remember looking at my body when I was 7 and thinking about it and wishing that I was a man, that I was an adult. And I can remember going through puberty and watching the changes in my body and being excited about, the things that were going on when I was young. I remember, anyway, funny stories there, probably not all appropriate, but just watching the changes in the body happen. And now, I look in the mirrors in the morning and I see my face and my body slowly melting, everything, all these little marks on my face that were invisible in my 20s are now taking on a life of their own, and it's quite a hilarious degeneration to watch. And to remember that when I look in the mirror, the eye that is looking at the changes of the body, it feels exactly the same as the eye that I remember looking at my 7-year-old body, and the eye that went through puberty and watched the changes in the body there. And part of spiritual life, part of spiritual practice is moving your sense of identity out of the body changing and into that unchanging sense of self that has always been present. And doing spiritual practices help you to become aware and to identify that self, because as we talk about, since it's unchanging, it doesn't catch your attention. The thing that brings your attention to it is by being aware of the change going on all around you and focusing on that central self, which isn't moving, which isn't changing. You know, if you sit there and wag your arms until they get really tired, just keep doing this over and over and over again. And when your arms begin to hurt, instead of thinking about the pain of the arm, which is to identify with the body, instead of thinking, I'm tired, oh, I want to stop, use that motion to take your mind off of the motion and bring it to that interior self that isn't moving, that isn't experiencing the body, that isn't a part of the body. It's just sort of aware of the body, much like you are when you're dreaming. And you can do those exercises, and you can begin by inference to really understand that there is an unchanging self within that belongs to the moment, meaning that it's eternal. It doesn't have a beginning and an end, just like the moment. It's always the experiencer of everything, and everything is always experienced in the now, right? And so you become more and more aware of this inner self that's separate and apart, that has watched the body change all of its life, and how it has remained separate and apart and unchanged from the body. And when you lay and think like Ramana Maharshi did when he had his realization by thinking about death, you'll understand, and you can certainly see how death is just going to be another change. It's going to be like another puberty, as it were, where you're going to watch the body change and be the observer through the whole event. And what lies beyond, who knows? Who knows, if anything or everything. But nonetheless, that you will be the adventurer, that you will not be the subject of that experience. You will simply watch the body make yet one more change in your life. So you follow this sense of self, and through that identity, as you move into that unchanging self as being the eye of the I, who you are, the more you feel a oneness with others, because you begin to recognize it in them. When you look in their eyes, you're reminded of your own eyes in the mirror, and you know sitting behind their eyes is the same I that doesn't change, that is sitting behind your eye. And so it begins to break down that wall of individualism, that wall of ego that has caused you to be separate and apart from everything. Moving into old age really does force you to change your identity of self. You know, if you were a great soccer player, at 75, you're not going to be a great soccer player. You're going to be someone who was a great soccer player. And so if you hold your identity as being a great soccer player, then old age brings a great sense of loss to you. If you see yourself as a beautiful, sexy person, at 85, you may be beautiful, probably aren't going to be sexy. And so it forces you to move into a sense of a deeper self. It forces your hand. It makes you look deeper inside for what you are. Because if you were, in fact, a beautiful, sexy person, you would always be a beautiful, sexy person. But the fact that the body is diminishing means that that's not your identity. And as you pay attention to that, you understand that the body you've been, quote, inhabiting, or at least aware of, has changed so radically from the days of its firstborn until now, and that there's nothing in the body in common from those times. So the entire body has changed. The entire body has been switched out for a new one cell at a time over the traversing of years. So who is the you that is the same in there? Who is the you that is named? It can't be the body because it's changed, it's gone, it's different, it's utterly different. So who is the I that has made it continue, that has given it an identity that was steady and unchanged through all of those years? So as you grow old, if you begin to pay attention and you begin to be aware that there is indeed something more, something hidden and secret, only because it's not jumping up and down and making noise to get your attention. But slowly, slowly, as the things that you've identified yourself with and the things that you've attached to in this world, the things that you've depended on, slowly, slowly disappear, which is natural and not sad. As they fall away, if you keep watching them and identifying with them, old age is bitterness and sadness. But if you're able to make the transition, like the caterpillar to the cocoon to the butterfly, if you're able to keep looking for that part of you that isn't involved in all of this decay and change and loss, you will find love. You will find intelligence. You'll find a mystery of existence that in and of itself is all that you need to be fully blissful, to be fully content, to be fully you.